Okay, so in the last lecture we have studied the characteristic signal and system function for continuous time system. Okay, so in this lecture we will study the characteristic signal and system function for discrete time systems. Okay, so we know that for a discrete time system, the input x of n and the output y of n is described through a linear difference equation. We have already mentioned this, and moreover we are assuming a linear time invariant discrete time systems. Okay. Therefore, the general form of linear difference equation is like a to the n y of n minus capital N plus a suffix n minus 1 y of n minus plus 1 and so on. Okay. So, it goes up to a naught y of n, which is equal to b suffix m x of n plus let us say capital M, and here let me take a plus here. So, then in that case plus n minus 1 plus b suffix m minus 1 x of n plus m minus 1 plus dot dot dot, then b suffix 0 x of n. So, this is the linear difference equation. Okay. Now, let us assume n is equal to 2 and a capital M is equal to 2. Therefore, this equation reduces as a suffix 2 y of n plus 2 plus a1 y of n plus 1 plus a naught is equal to b2 x of n plus 2 plus b1 x of n plus 1 plus b naught x of n. So, this is the equation describing the input output relation of a discrete time system, and this equation is the second order. Why is it called second order? Because the highest difference is 2. Second order linear time invariant or constant parameter. Time invariant is also called a constant parameter system, but we will use a time invariant discrete time system. Okay. Now, it can be shown that, like what we did in the previous lecture, that y of n, it can be shown that let us say x of n equals some constant a times z to the n. Okay. So, it can be shown that this is a characteristic signal of a discrete time system. Okay. So, that means what? If you recall from the previous lecture that x of t is equal to a times e to the st. This is the characteristic signal of CT system, continuous time system. By the similar way, for a discrete time system, this can be shown as characteristic signal. Okay. That is just like e to the st being a characteristic signal for a continuous time domain. In the case of discrete time systems, a to the a times z to the n is the characteristic signal. Okay, what is a here? A is some multiplying constant, it can be 1 also. that means you are amplifying the signal by a times or whatever it is. It is not amplifying constant, it is some constant. Now for the time being, we disregard a, we are not going to consider. Therefore, z to the n, by the way it is not capital Z, it is a small z, let me put this notation, z to the n is the characteristic signal. Characteristic signal. Okay. Now, if you recall, for the continuous time case, x of t is equal to a to the j omega t. Okay. So, in this case, what is the forced response? We said that is particular integral of yp of t, or you can say y of forced response yp of t. FORCED, or you can put F4, no problem. Forced response is equal to h of j omega times x of t, where x of t happens to be your exponential signal e to the j omega t. This is the forced response. Now, this relation is important, recall from the previous lecture. Okay, whenever we are talking about sinusoidal excitations, then the forced response is equal to h of j omega times x of t times x of t. The same kind of relation we can obtain for a discrete time case also. Say this is the continuous time case. So, in that continuous time case, the response is like this, forced response. We can obtain this similar kind of relationship for discrete time system also. Therefore, the forced response that is the particular integral solution for y of n, forced response y of n is equal to b2 times z square plus, by the way, this z is small letter, okay. Sometimes I am changing the notation, please don't mind. Small letter, it's not capital letter. Z square plus b1 times, in fact I should write like this only, b1 times z plus b naught divided by a naught z square, sorry, a suffix 2 z squared plus a1 z plus a naught multiply by x of n, where x of n is of the form a times z to the n, and this whole thing we regard as h of z times x of n, where x of n is of the form, let us disregard a, anyway let me write down z to the n. Okay, so just in the same way as we had in the continuous case. Okay, from these coefficients, what are the coefficients do we have here? b2 is a coefficient of z squared, b1, b naught, this is b naught, then a2, a1, a naught. Okay, from these coefficients you form the polynomial. So, this polynomial is formed numerator polynomial and denominator polynomials, right. So, you have numerator polynomial and denominator polynomial. So, both these polynomials are formed with the help of these coefficients b2, b1, b naught, a2, a1, a naught, and one can ask the question, who will give these coefficients? These coefficients are obtained from the system components. Okay, these are obtained from the system. So, once again this polynomial, numerator polynomial by denominator polynomial is called h of z, and h of z is once again called discrete time system function. Okay, like in the previous lecture we said h of s, this is the continuous time system function. By the same token, h of z is called a discrete time system function. Okay, so working out h of z is quite analogous to the continuous time case. Both are interrelated, very similar. The characteristic signal is z to the n. Okay, instead of e to the st for continuous time and z to the n for discrete time system. And the system function here for the discrete time case is h of z, and for the continuous time case it is h of s. Okay, we will deal with this this h of z later, later some part of the course. Okay, later probably at the end of the course when we deal with the discrete time systems, especially z transform, then discrete time Fourier transform, then discrete Fourier transform, where we will use this h of z, especially z transforms and discrete time transforms. So this h of z is very much useful in z transform. Okay, so this h of z is a parallel development as applicable to discrete time systems. Okay, it completely follows the same lines that we have for the continuous time system. Okay, so far we have talked about 3 different ways of characterizing a linear system. Okay, what are the different ways? If you recall, they are differential equations. You write down the differential equation relating input and output. You have a system, input is x of t or x of n, output is y of t. So either differential equation or difference equation. For continuous time, differential equations; for discrete time, difference equation. For example, if you take a resistor, you put a resistor here, then put an inductor, then put a capacitor, then like this, then this is your x of t, input is x of t. You want to find out the output v naught of t or Vc of t, voltage across the capacitor. Let me call this is y of t. Now you write down the equation for this. The current flowing through this is I of t. You can simply write x of t is equal to R times I of t plus L times di by dt plus the voltage across the capacitor is Vc. Therefore, the input is equal to R times I of t plus L times di of t by dt plus y of t. So this is the differential equation relating input and output. So what is y of t? Y of t is the voltage across the capacitor. What is the voltage across the capacitor? 1 over c integral of I of t times dt. So if you substitute back, then you will get integral differential equation. Okay, so x of t plus R times I of t plus L times di of t by dt, where x of t is, let us say, Vi of t or something else, then y of t is 1 by c integral of I of t times dt. Then you solve this differential equation. For this differential equation, you will get 2 solutions. One is complementary function. Okay, make the input equal to 0, then find the answer. And the second part is find the particular integral. So this is one method, and second method is, so instead of doing this difficult process, you can find the output y of t is equal to h of s times x of t. So this is another method. And the third method for discrete time systems, we said y of n is equal to h of z times x of n. So, solution of the differential equation will give us the complementary function and the particular integral, and also it is somewhat difficult to solve it. Okay. So, we saw the difficulties associated with this. Second method is using transform function. Second method involves h of s and the third method involves h of z. So, this is much easier actually compared to the first one using differential equations. You can use the system function h of s, or in the case of continuous time system, and h of z in the case of discrete time system, and you can get the output very easily. Again it gives the same information as the differential equation. Either you can go through differential equation or through this h of s method or h of z method. Whichever is convenient, whichever is more comfortable, you can choose any one among these three. Then we also saw an equivalent method which is the frequency response. As I said, S equal to sigma plus j omega. Now if you make sigma equal to 0, then S becomes j omega. And what is j omega? Omega is the angular frequency, right? If omega is angular frequency, then h of S becomes h of j omega. That means you got some expression in terms of or function of omega. Therefore, this is called, instead of calling system function, it is more appropriate to call what? Frequency response of the system. I mean, you vary the frequency and how the response of the system will be changed. That's what we mean by frequency response. Okay, so it turns out that when we study Laplace transform, h of s will be used. Okay, Laplace transformation methods, the system function comes into its own. So, it is very important. We will use this h of s repeatedly in Laplace transform. Similarly, this guy h of j omega will be used in CTFT, continuous time Fourier transform. Okay, so we will try to exploit the properties of the system function to deal with a transient response. Similarly, when we study later like CTFT, continuous time Fourier transform, then this h of j omega will be very much useful, frequency response function. And there is also yet the fourth way of describing the system response, which is called impulse response. I think that I already covered. Either you can find out y of t through differential equation, or through h of s, if it is discrete through or h of j omega. So, these three methods you can use in the continuous time case. H of j omega. But there is one more method that we already discussed. The fourth method is impulse response. As I said, the impulse response is denoted by h of t. So, what do we mean by impulse response? You take continuous time LTI system, and now the input is not x of t, it is del of t, impulse function, and the corresponding output is called impulse response, the response due to an impulse function. Okay. So, if you give an impulse to a system, the output we call it impulse response. This is an independent way of characterizing a system. Okay. Either you can characterize through differential equations or system function or frequency response or h of t. So, this is completely independent way of describing a system. Any one method you can use, all are equivalent. Independent way of describing the LTI system. Okay. So, you can choose any one, either a differential equation or h of s or h of j omega or impulse response, all are equivalent. 1, 2, 3 and this 4. These 4 methods all are equivalent. You can choose any one. whichever you feel more comfortable, you can choose and find the output of the system. Okay, later on when you are designing a system and you want to know what is the output of the system, then you can employ h of t, where if you use h of t, we already discussed, like y of t is equal to x of t convolved with the h of t. And in fact there is a strong relation between h of t and h of s that we will discuss. Okay, so if you know the h of s, we will be able to analyze or find the response for any given excitation, right? That's what we mean by. So y of t is equal to h of s times x of t. That means what? Once you know h of s, then you can find out y of t for any given x of t. Similarly, if you know the system impulse response h of t convolved with x of t, then also you can get the response for any input, arbitrary input, it doesn't matter. Similarly, if you know the frequency response h of j omega, then also you can find out the response y of t for any input. So these all are independent way of characterizing a linear system. Independent way of characterizing linear systems, linear time invariant TIV systems. Okay, so if you know the response to an impulse, you should be able to find out the response to any given input x of t. That input can be an arbitrary input. That is also an independent way of doing this. There is yet another way of describing the system output, what is called the step response. You take the same LTI continuous time system, and now the input is not delta t, it is u of t, unit step signal, and the corresponding output is denoted by A of t. Some people will use a notation S of t, but let us stick on to S of t because there will be some confusion if I put S here. The same S represents a complex frequency, so let us not use it, like S equal to sigma plus j omega. So let us stick on with the A of t. So here you are giving a unit step u of t as the input, and what you get is the output A of t. That is the step response, the response due to unit step signal. Okay, what do you mean by step response? Response due to a step signal or a unit step signal. Unit step signal. Therefore, also instead of response, we can also call output due to a unit step signal. So these are all different ways of characterizing a system, characterizing a linear time invariant system, and all are equivalent. Each will give complete information about the system, which you need to solve for the response under any given excitation, any given input signal, arbitrary input signal. So till now we have studied the differential equations to some extent. We will leave it at that because the differential equation approach is very complex and lengthy process, and there is a more chance to make a mistake. So and also we have noted the methodologies that is involved, and we also noted some of the difficulties. So these difficulties will be overcome when you use the system function approach using the Laplace transformation methods, which we will take up at some point of time, some later point in this course. And we will also study how to exploit the information that is available from h of j omega when we study Fourier series. So later on in this course, this h of s we will talk about when Laplace transform, when we are going to discuss, and h of j omega when continuous time Fourier transform. Okay, we will take up at some later point in this course. Okay, so we will study how to exploit the information that is available from h of j omega when we study Fourier series and Fourier transform also. I mean Fourier series also and Fourier transform. But we do not have to go to this h of s or h of j omega at this point of time. This is just an introduction to your system function. So we can carry out the work either in the time domain using the impulse response like that we did in the previous lectures, like y of t is equal to h of t convolved with the x of t. So this operation is called a time domain operation, time domain, or we can carry out the output due to frequency response in terms of h of j omega and h of s. These two are frequency domain representation, frequency domain description. But we will use this information again when we go to Laplace transform methods. This one Laplace transform methods and h of j omega continuous time Fourier transform CT of t. Okay, so we will see h of s, the system function, and the impulse response h of t, both are related actually. Okay, there is a strong relation between h of t and h of s. Now if you take Laplace transform of h of t, then you will get h of s. Similarly, you take h of s and take inverse IELT, inverse Laplace transform, then you will get h of t. Similarly, h of t, you take CT of t, you continuous time Fourier transform, then you will get h of j omega. Similarly, h of j omega, you take inverse CT of t, inverse continuous time Fourier transform, then again you will get back h of t. So they are very closely related to each other, h of t and h of j omega, and h of t and h of s. In fact, one can move from h of s to h of j omega also, h of j omega to h of s, or h of s to h of j omega. So that will be taken up at a later point of time. Okay, so let me stop at this point. Thank you very much.